Welcome back to our channels. In this video, we are going to talk about hub and spoke topology in Azure cloud environment, how it works, what needs to be done to establish a communication between two VNets that may deploy in same region or that may deploy in different region. What do we call if we deploy we peer two VNets that are in different region? How both how the resources will be communicating, even if it is communicating or it's not, when will it be communicating? All these things that we are going to talk about in this video. All right, so here we can see like we have one hub virtual network and one spoke virtual network. These are paired with each other with peering options. Okay, and we have another virtual network that is spoke to, and it is also paired with its hub virtual network. Okay, so we can see like this virtual network and its hub virtual network and this uh, hub virtual network and the spoke one virtual network are in Israel central region. Okay, Israel central region, and this is the spoke one that is in somewhere France central region. Okay, so the pairing that has been established between two VNets that are those VNets which are in the same VNet known as only VNet peering, only VNet pairing, and those virtual networks which are in different region. That, let's say here the spoke one is in Israel central and this spoke one spoke two in France central region. So the pairing that we will be establishing between the hub and the spoke two will be known as VNet global pairing. It is somewhere having a link between those between these VNets in 10 gig per second. So there is no such limitation in host availability and all. But we can say like if we have deployed one resource in France central region and another resource in Israel central region, so we can see like if we need to deploy a one if we need to deploy an application that is supposed to be available at every condition, so we can also provide a regional availability. So since an application, a replica of application or instance can be put in both the regions, so to provide a regional availability, to regional availability. So what we can say, let's suppose if this VM gets down, then this VM will be available for all. So that is the reason we use different region. But here we are going to cover about hub and spoke topology. So like we can see here, there's two hub and spoke, hub and spoke one, hub and spoke two are paired with each other, and the address spaces that is assigned on the sign on hub VNet is 10.1.0.0 and 10.172.16 and 172.17 in spoke 2. Okay, so to pair, before pairing these two virtual network, we must assure that the address spaces that is in use with virtual network must be distinguished between the virtual network that we are going to pair. Now, once the virtual network will be paired with each other, then the resource that will be available in the in hub VNet will be able to communicate with the resource that is available in spoke one VNet. All we just need to establish peering between the virtual network. So when we configure a peering between virtual network, it is just single configuration on Azure portal, but two operation means when we configure a peering to establish between two VNets, one peering will be established between hub to spoke one, and the other peering will be established between spoke one to hub. Okay, So similarly, if we initiate a peering, global peering between hub to spoke to, and then there will be two pairing that will be established between spoke to and the hub. Now these two pairings has been established, and both the vnets spoke one and hub will be able to communicate with each other, and the spoke two and hub vnet will be able to communicate with each other. But the only problem is, like, if we want to communicate we communicate or establish connectivity between the spoke 1 to spoke 2, we must have to establish a pairing between these two VNets. Okay, then only this resource will be able to communicate with the spoke 1 resources. Otherwise, if we do not establish a separate pairing between spoke 1 and spoke 2, we will not be able to communicate. We can also notice that this hub must be available with both the address spaces and the VNet address spaces. So this hub can route the traffic or forward the traffic between these spokes. Let's suppose if you this spoke one resource wants to communicate with this spoke two. So by default, it will not be able to communicate with it. This this connectivity can be achieved if this is paired with hub VNet, and hub VNet can forward the request back to the spoke to VNet resources, so that we can establish communicate. But by default, does Azure does not forward any traffic to its own spoke VNets until we have any routing or any resource that has routing capability. Then only we can achieve it. So we must have some resource so that who can take decision whether to forward or not to forward. Those resources will be deployed to forward the traffic between from in hub and spoke. But by default, two spokes cannot communicate with each other until we establish pairing between the units. All right, this is what we can see here. Now let's move to the Azure portal so that we can understand how these pairings can be configured and how these VNets on the resources are communicating with each other.